It is with great pleasure that I am introducing you to Nicole LaBouff. Let me tell you about how I met Nicole. I had been told by a number of people that I should get rid of my landline. And I kept, postponing and postponing. And I had been I'd been reaching out to museums for a couple of years. Let me rewind a little bit. So George, my husband George, his mother started this business in the 20s of hand-woven textiles. And it was upholstery and drapery fabric. And the business was very successful. And she earned quite a distinctive reputation throughout the world, really. And her business was in LA at 3425 West 1st Street. And I met George, some of you know, when I was 19 years old. And I was majoring in home economics, part of which is interior design. And I had to do a project, a vision board, as part of my assignment. Anyway, I started working at what we called the shop. It was the business. And I was doing statistical typing and da-da-da-da-da. And so the business was flourishing, primarily, I guess, in the 50s. And 50s and 60s, and things began to wane as time went on. And these custom designs were beginning to be replicated overseas on mechanical looms. And so they were much less expensive. And so in the 90s, we had to close up shop. Maria passed away in 1988. And we were left with, George donated equipment, yarn, fabrics, patterns, to whomever would receive them. A large recipient was a museum in San Bernardino County, which it happens to be in Redlands. But these fabrics were like children to him. He had tremendous regard for his mother. He couldn't imagine how she ran a family and ran a business. And I have to say, business was her #1 priority, but she loved her son, and yeah. So he brought all these textiles home that we couldn't donate. And they were at 517 Garrett Drive for a few decades. So I began to search for, I felt like I was at my wit's end. Every time I looked at them, I thought, oh my God, they're taking up so much space, they're not being archived properly. So I started a quest, back to my landline story, I started a quest to find a museum that would accept them. And I wrote to museums all over the country, and I knew that some of Maria's textiles were already in significant museums. And I got nothing. No feedback, no responses. So I come home from Montana, where you guys know I spend my summers, and the light's blinking on my answering machine. Yes, I am. And, I'll get to it. I think a couple of weeks went by and I finally listened to it. Hello, I'm looking for a member of the Engelke family. And it was this lovely lady. And I'm from the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. So it was a God thing. Totally. And so in the meantime, my oldest son, Ben, had decided that we needed to get these things out of the garage. God knows. These are famous textiles, and they're in my garage. And so he took it upon himself to move them to a storage unit. over in Costa Mesa. And so Nicole and I met in front of the storage unit. And I knew we were going to become friends because she drove a Subaru like I do. So, with that, I'll go ahead and let Nicole take over. I just want you to know that Nicole has beautiful illustrations. All of what I had in my collection is at the museum, with the exception of there are things displayed over there. Those are shawls that Maria made for me.
Wow.
And they're going to end up at the museum. But that's all I have that's tangible. And you're going to be tempted to touch them. That's fine, just don't have grease on your hands.
Yeah, because
they're going to LACMA, yes. But what I wanted to point out, the two pillows are in my house. And they happen to be the same design, but in different colors. And if you look carefully, you'll see the little tag on them from the 30s. Maria did the she did she did the City Hall. She did, yeah, when it was built.
Wow.
And so those are really cool tags. And I don't know if Nicole's going to mention this. She brought over all of the hand woven fabrics were done on wooden looms from Germany, which she put together.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Wow.
I said, "How do you pronounce your name?" She said, "I said it LaBouff," and she said, "No, LaBouff, like buff."
Thank you so much, and it's really my honor and pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for coming today to hear about Maria Kipp. And I want to say it's also a really enjoyable thing for me to be in Orange County because I got my PhD at UC Irvine, so I'm an anteater. And so it's like, you know, a kind of homecoming for me to be here as well. So I want to just give you a kind of roadmap of where this is going to go. So the little blurb that I wrote gives you some indication of what I'm going to talk about. You know, there's a lot of biography about Maria Kipp, you know, some information about her artwork, but also there's a lot of information about her spiritual orientation because that's a really important factor in her artistic path that she followed. And the spiritual path takes some kind of unexpected turns and ends up going into the paranormal. So I just want to give you a heads up that that's going to be in this discussion too. And I sort of gestured to that at the blurb when I, you know, mentioned the occult. And so as I was researching her life story and her career and going through the archives that Denny Lynn still has at the home, I found some material that I believe aligns with ufology, the contemporary term for the study of UFOs and the whole phenomenon associated with that. And so I ended up, actually almost exactly a year ago, going to this big art history conference in New York that happens every year. And there was it was the first panel on UFOs in American art, because now this discussion of ufology is kind of going mainstream and going into academia. And my friend had chaired the panel, and he invited me to present this new material that I was just in the process of discovering. So this lecture kind of started with that conference paper that I gave, and then I've expanded to give you a lot more information on her life and her artwork. So I just want you to be prepared for when we get to that topic. You know, I don't think it's kind of a conventional topic, so I just want you to know where this is going. Oh, here we are, okay. So this is kind of how the story began. So I had worked at LACMA years ago. I think the first time that I started working there was 2001. And I had worked there for several years and then left and did my PhD and then came back again to work at LACMA 2 years ago. So I had just kind of rejoined the department, and I was only there about 2 months when our department got this call from San Bernardino Art Museum saying, did we want to receive their Maria Kipp archive? And I knew about her work from having worked at the department previously, and we have a nice collection of some of her draperies. And I loved her work, and I said, you know, I really am interested in making the drive out there, I'll go check it out. So this is what I encountered, and this is what George had donated to initially Cal State Long Beach. It went there for the design school, and then they transferred it to San Bernardino. And they did a small exhibition on her in 2017, we think. And so this is what I encountered. It was kind of a hard sell to get the museum to receive it because storage and art storage is at a premium. But you know, given her significance and her you know, the fact that she was a really important LA designer, the museum decided to move forward with it. So it was in the process of researching this acquisition that I came to read her autobiography and wanted to see if I could get permission to publish it. And that was what led me to reach out to Denny Lynn, was really just to get that permission. And then when I talked to her, she said, I have thousands of textiles and I want those too. And so then it became 2 acquisitions. So this is just a peek into those boxes. There are, between the 2 acquisitions, almost 10,000 textiles. So it's really, it's really, this is sort of her business archive that was left after the shop closed. So this gives you an idea of like the amazing colors that she used, and these, they were all hand dyed and vegetable dyes. So not only were they hand woven, but they were hand dyed and all natural vegetable dyes, which is incredible. So she's really important as a colorist, but also as a weaver. And this one on the right gives you an indication of, you know, how complex and nuanced her weave structures were, and that's because she was a highly, highly skilled, trained, you know, technically skilled weaver. And here, so this is the day that Denny Lynn and I met, and this is her storage unit with all of the textiles that were still in her possession. And then here's Maria Kipp wall hanging that's in Denny Lynn's living room, which I also saw that first day that we met.
That's a drapery panel.
Yeah, and again, really technically complicated. So here is the purpose-built showroom and workshop that Maria Kipp had built. You know, she funded this building and she worked with an architect to build it for her, and it was completed in 1951. And this photograph is by a famous photographer, Julia Schulman, and this is in the Getty Research Archives. So there's a number of photographs that he did of her building when it was first completed. And this is the interior of the showroom. With all of the floor samples there. And here she is upon her retirement in 1977 in the showroom. So now I'm going to read a bit more now. Though unfortunately not as well known today as she should be, Maria Kipp was the first woman to lead a commercially successful hand weaving business in the United States, making luxury furnishing textiles in Los Angeles for over 50 years, from the 1920s to the 1950s. Her first commission came from Rudolf Schindler in 1925 for his famed Level Beach house in Laguna. She went on to collaborate with other icons of California modernism, and a few of them are shown here. So most of these men are Austro-German expats, but Paul Revere Williams on the right there is, he was a path-breaking African-American architect, and there's actually an exhibition that will be happening in the next year at the Getty, LACMA, and USC, all dedicated to Paul Revere Williams. And Maria called out Paul Williams as really one of her favorite collaborators that she worked with throughout her entire career. And she talks about him in her autobiography again, which I'm hoping to publish next year. I'll start fundraising for that book. So you can
have any loose change.
Yeah, I'll start fundraising next year. But she does speak about him very fondly in her memoir. But Kipp enjoyed also a particularly close relationship with Schindler, whom she commissioned to renovate her home and workshop in the 1930s. So this is the home workshop here on the left, And that's George Sr. in the picture. And then on the right is the desk that Schindler made for Maria Kipp, and that was in her showroom, and that ended up at the Dallas Museum of Art.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a story there.
Yes,
but we won't
there's
go
a
into that. So here's George Sr. and George Jr. at Manhattan Beach, where they would vacation every year. And here is, this is a page from Maria Kipp's illustrated autobiography. It's amazing. She, created all of the illustrations she wanted inserted and created captions for them. So here's just one.
And Scotch tape them into the.
Yeah. While Kipp's surviving artworks are fascinating on their own terms, it was only through doing research to support the acquisitions that I read Kipp's unpublished autobiography and gradually came to believe that in addition to being a path-breaking artist, she was also a psychic medium and experiencer. And I use this term to refer to someone who's had experience with, non-human entities, let's say. Her 1978 memoir chronicles a lifetime of supernatural events going back to age 4. It sheds light on how these experiences shaped her pursuit of art as a profession, as well as her understanding of art in relation to human consciousness. Near the end of my talk, I will bring Maria's memoir in dialogue with that of the fiction writer and experiencer Whitley Strieber, and close with some thoughts about what artist experiencers can tell us about human creativity. Born and raised in Germany, Maria was 11 when her mother died and 17 when her father passed away. He was a prominent Lutheran minister and had professional ties to the state. After their death, Maria's parents manifested before her many times, imparting parental advice, often work-related, and at times when the stability of her business seemed threatened. Sometimes these manifestations included predictions, like the time when a girl, unknown to Kipp, appeared in her living room and said, "Don't worry, you will get the permit." This referred to a distressingly delayed government permit for a special type of rationed wool, which Kipp needed in order to make baby blankets, and that was the one item that sustained her business during World War II. 10 days later, the permit arrived. Kipp also had palpable waking visions, essentially 3D moving pictures, and dreams that guided her artistic pursuits. In her autobiography, Kipp conveys these stories directly as matters of fact, but added that many more unexplainable and even painful experiences were too strange for her to commit to writing.
Wow.
Glimpses of these two strange occurrences are tucked away in the family archives. A letter Kipp sent to her New Age spiritual mentor when she was 86 related the following, quote, "When I was 12 years old, I had an experience with far-reaching consequences. When I entered my room, I saw a figure with a flowing gown above me wielding a stick or rod. While the figure talked to me, I received 3 electrical shocks. I felt the first jolt very intensely and strong, whereas the next ones became reduced in strength. Also, the voice, which was loud in the beginning, declined in its volume. I always thought because I became so frightened, being raised in a Protestant minister's house, I never dreamt or heard of anything like that was the cause for the diminishing strength of the shocks and the voice, and my inability to understand what was spoken. But all through these years, I kept the vividness of this experience in my heart and mind," end quote. This 1912 event bears many of the hallmarks of abduction stories that would become common in ufology literature in the 1980s. The onset of puberty, a bedroom location, a rod, electric shocks, and levitation implied in the flowing gown above me. Among her many paranormal accounts, this is the only one where Kipp avoids personal pronouns, instead using the euphemism, "the figure." It's also interesting that while she grew up around people, mainly Catholics, who believed in witches, some of whom even perished on the roads during the Walpurgisnacht when the witches roamed free each year, Maria did not call the figure a witch, much less an angel. The far-reaching consequences Kipp gestures to involved many things, but paramount among them was her departure from organized religion. Though she held deep respect for her father and her Lutheran upbringing, following an independent course for spiritual development was crucial for Maria. However, she periodically adhered herself to lay movements, the first of which was Mazdaznan, to which she was introduced by her boyfriend and later first husband, Ernst Haeckel. The couple's strong commitment to Mazdaznan was in fact a primary reason for their 1924 emigration to Los Angeles, which became the world headquarters for the movement in 1917.
Is that is Mazdaznan a type of organization or religion or?
It was a lay movement, so it was,
Okay.
here, let me see it, I think I skipped a slide, yeah. So this was the founder, Otto Hainisch, and so he started this movement, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Its founder, Otto Hainisch, promoted a series of practices involving meditation, yogic breathing, and vegetarianism, all of which became permanent fixtures in Maria's life. She even spoke at a Mazdaznan convention in Leipzig, which was attended by the artist and Bauhaus professor Johannes Itten. Galvanized by this event, Itten rapidly incorporated Mazdaznan into his life and his teaching curricula, and by this means the movement had an important impact on the course of modern art, and Maria was part of that. Maria eventually parted ways with Mazdaznan. But later connected with the Arcane School, which was founded by the British expat Alice Bailey. Bailey's teachings, the first to employ the term New Age, as in the sense of we are living in a new age, took shape after she was expelled from Crotona, which you can see here on the left. That was the Los Angeles Theosophical headquarters, and she was expelled for her unorthodox beliefs. She believed that she was receiving information from a spiritual entity that, and those teachings somewhat deviated from the standard theosophical teachings, so she was expelled. Maria Kipp's account of the figure that visited her in the night derives from a letter addressed to Alice Bailey's successor, Mary Bailey, and that was Alice's husband's second wife after Alice died. Okay, here we go. The far-reaching consequences also involved Kipp's pursuit of art as a profession, a choice that involved great risk at a time for women, at that time, for a woman, particularly one from a high-status religious family. Kipp's memoir recounts a dream in which she was shown stacks of vivid textiles and filled with a sense of knowing that this would become her vocation. Within a few years, Maria would become the first woman ever to attend Germany's State Academy for the Textile Industry, where she obtained a master's in textile engineering. And so not only was she trained as a textile designer and weaver, but she was trained as an engineer, and through that means, what the students would have to do at this school is they would have to build and deconstruct looms so that they knew how to not just operate them, but build them. And so that's why she was able to build all of the looms for her workshop. But the far-reaching consequences may also have involved Kipp's psychic powers, her lifelong rejection of conventional medicine, even as her husband gradually went blind from a treatable condition, and sexual abstinence. She discussed the latter openly with loved ones, adding that she and her husband made an exception to this rule only once, A singular,
That would be my husband.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
a singular event that resulted in the birth of her son. All of these things, religious conversion, sexual and medical aversion, paranormal abilities, all are commonly reported by experiencers. Throughout her long career, Kipp produced only one figurative work, a mural sculpture, and I believe it represents the figure. She co-created it in the 1960s with her friend Johnny Napolitano, a sculptor who worked on a number of Los Angeles public building projects that Maria also worked on. And here he is working on the construction of Los Angeles City Hall. And he's right here.
Johnny and Emmy were wonderful, wonderful friends of Maria and George's, Papa George. Yeah, lovely, lovely people.
And his wife Emmy was Maria Kipp's essentially design assistant, like her right-hand person. Among Napolitano's surviving business papers is a preliminary design sketch for the sculpture. Denny Lynn still owns a carved sun, which I believe was a prototype. And here you can see the changing contours of its face. The eyes grow larger and the smile begins to fade. The final result was more stylized and bears a striking resemblance to the visitor who Strieber says abducted him repeatedly throughout his life. In Communion, Strieber explains his preference for the euphemistic term visitor over, quote, alien or extraterrestrial. The term, he says, the visitor term is neutral, and it brings with it no suggestion of a physical point of origin on an unknown planet. Rather, visitor leaves the door open to a ubiquitous phenomenon we cannot understand or explain, but occasionally observe throughout the course of life on Earth. One of Kipp's notebooks from the 1940s preserves a full-length version of her figure along with a companion. On a nearby page, she wrote, quote, "I do not know you. You had oriental features and your eyes were very peculiar. I looked very close. I saw only 2 white points and no eyes. Then later I followed the eyes and could see the stream of energy focusing on an object, on me," end quote. Here the abstract shapes in the margin echo both the figure's wide-brimmed hat and the fan-folded elements of the sculpture, which convey light radiating out. Though Kipp stowed away her recollections of the figure in her private papers, there is good reason to link this entity to the dead loved ones mentioned throughout her autobiography. I say this with Anne Strieber's observation in mind, that the visitor phenomenon has something to do with, quote, what you call the dead. In addition to the preceding, the autobiography registers a dreamlike encounter with Kipp's deceased father amidst some buildings that sound a lot like UFOs. Quote, "I stood on the sideline of a very strange-looking scenery of big dome-like buildings which were scattered around at random, and still they appeared to be placed in a symmetrical pattern. The silvery sheen of the grayish color on those structures and the white circular steps leading to their high but also wide portals were in sharp contrast with the darkness of the ground. Suddenly, I saw my father, who was unaware of me, coming out of one of these domes and with apparent great concentration, entering swiftly another one. While I was wondering about the absence of windows on these houses, I became aware of, and all of a sudden, I knew very clearly that the different religions and philosophies of our earth were studied in here. In this case, I am not sure if this picture was only just the succession of images which one experiences in an ordinary dream, or was this really an awareness of another world," end quote. At the close of her memoir, Kipp makes clear her belief in a higher human mind, one that concerns the soul rather than the brain. She felt this higher mind was connected to other entities, including humans, both living and dead, and other supernatural forces. Fascinatingly, she marshaled numerous scientific studies to support her belief. And the figures that I show here on this slide are all named by her, and she mentions all of them by name in her memoir. So she was certainly aware of contemporary research that was happening at the time. Maybe also because she was learning about, cutting edge science from her son, who was an engineer. These ranged from psi experiments to neurological proof of the soul, to quantum physics, to guided missiles that seek their targets only when scientists feed them the right data. She then connected her philosophy of the mind to the creative process, which she felt was universally collaborative. And she cited a book by the musician and music reporter Arthur Abel. Maria writes, quote, "Musicians in deep concentration can hear unknown melodies and can receive songs in a flash of a moment. Arthur Abel reveals their feelings and gives us an insight into their personal experiences. Richard Strauss said that receiving inspiration is something of so subtle, tenuous, a will-o'-the-wisp-like nature that it almost defies definition. He said, I feel that I am tapping the source of an infinite and eternal energy from which you and I and all things proceed. I have definite compelling visions involving a higher selfhood. Puccini knew that he contacted during deep concentration a supernatural influence which qualified him to receive divine truth, to communicate it to the public through the music of his operas. He said, quote, the faith in the power of my own ego opened the way for vibrations to pass from the dynamo, which the soul center is, into my consciousness, and the inspired ideas were born." End quote. Brahms, Beethoven, and many others expressed similar sentiments. End quote. In Communion, published just 1 year prior to Kipp's death, Strieber conveyed similar ideas about artistic creation, likewise gesturing to music and even weaving, as he called for a new study of art that incorporates the visitors. According to Strieber, quote, whomever the visitors are, their activities go far beyond a mere study of mankind. They are involved with us on very deep levels, playing in the band of a dream, weaving imagination and reality together until they begin to seem what they probably are, different aspects of a single continuum. To really begin to perceive the visitors adequately, it is going to be necessary to invent a new discipline of vision, one that combines the mystic's freedom of imagination with the substantial intellectual rigor of the scientist, end quote. To conclude, here we have a microhistory spanning the better part of the 20th century that points to the ways figures or visitors, as well as human spirits and dreams, might operate as muses that generate and sustain creative production. From what I can tell, Kipp had no awareness of the visitor phenomenon and never succeeded in identifying her figure. Nevertheless, she firmly regarded human creative work as a collaborative process that involved supernatural forces. Strieber gave some of those collaborators faces and names and placed them squarely within the public sphere where they are now commonplace. And so that concludes my talk, and I'm happy to, open the floor to questions and can, speak to about some upcoming things at LACMA if you want to talk about that, but that was
Very good.
That's wonderful.
But, she was obviously a very spiritual person, so I was really, I thought it was really a great occasion to speak about her at a church, and with a Bible study group, so seems very appropriate. Yes.
she obviously had this spiritual feeling from a very early age.
Yes.
That 12-year-old that you showed. I'm assuming it also, and I'm saying more to Denny Lynn than to you, that it also evolved further over time.
Yes.
And was that reflected at all in her weavings? I mean, did they instill some form of spirituality as in an obvious way that one could recognize?
It's not obvious, because, I mean, you saw that, well, you can see the examples of her weaving here. I mean, this is really what her artwork looks like. It's abstract, right? And so, and that was really what I was struggling with when I started to read her autobiography. I was really expecting to hear a lot of information about her work and design process. And what I ended up reading a lot was spirituality. And it really, when I finished it, I slammed it on my desk and I was like, what am I supposed to do with this? How do I connect it to her art, working in an art museum? And so that was really a struggle in the beginning. I think she did bring a real spiritual impulse to her work in the sense that she loved creating beauty. She really, was enamored with beauty and creating beauty, and she loved the idea that she could create beautiful works that could go into environments and homes and create a beautiful surrounding for people to enjoy. So that was kind of, I think, what she felt was her real spiritual mission, was to create a beautiful space for people. But it doesn't come out figuratively. It really that's that one figurative work that she does, that it connects to her experience.
Denny Lynn, did she discuss that figurative work with you at all?
No.
Where are you?
No.
Sorry, my neck is killing me right now.
It's all right, I understand about next. No, she did not. If I may contribute a few
Absolutely.
things. Maria was an inspiration. She was the most non-judgmental individual I've ever come across. She accepted everyone, every race, every sexual orientation, and she accepted me. And I'm a 19-year-old girl when I come into her life, and here she has this extraordinary background and gift. She spoke with a very heavy German accent, and it was charming. I sometimes wondered if she kept it just because it was charming. And she would say that her inspiration for her design came from nature. She would get her colors from looking at a landscape. And she was, if I'm not mistaken, she put together colors that one wouldn't have expected to put together. And they had a wonderful outcome. Nicole hasn't talked yet about her many installations. Air Force One, the Beverly Hills Hotel Polo Lounge, which she collaborated with Paul Revere Williams, the black architect, who designed the thing that, whatever you call that, the theme restaurant. And many celebrity homes. If some of you may be familiar with Modernism Week that takes place in Palm Springs, it's going on right now. I don't know if it's concluded. Many of the homes that are part of that have Maria Kipp textiles as part of them. It was an inspiration to just be around her, and I just couldn't get over the fact that she loved me. When we bought our home in Cameo Highlands, I just told Nicole and I had a slumber party last night at my house. She did the draperies for our living room. And the couches that are still in my living room are the ones that were in her home in the Hollywood Hills.
Wow.
They were so substantial and beautifully made. They've been reupholstered, but yeah. So I just felt it was such a privilege to be in her midst. She was down to earth too. One of her favorite things that she'd come over to eat at the house was my taco salad, for God's sake. You know?
That's funny.
It's just, it was something, yeah.
How did she learn to do the weaving? And so it was like someone in
She
her
went to school
family?
in Germany.
But I mean, was it like a relative that taught her?
No,
or-
she went to the, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
You know, she did learn embroidery as a girl. That was kind of typical for the village that she lived in. She grew up in a very kind of rural setting, and so there was still a real traditional life way there. So girls would do weaving and spinning and embroidery. So she did grow up with that, but then she went to art school because she was kind of swayed by her first husband that was her first boyfriend, and he was already studying art, and so he kind of exposed her to that idea. And so she went to art school in Munich, and weaving was part of her curriculum there, but I think she said that she records really being torn between pursuing art and weaving or horticulture. So that was like a big early decision in her life. So she really was influenced by that dream she had of the stacks of textiles, and she was like, oh, that's it. That's the direction I need to go. So that was kind of what, got her to go to get her master's in textile engineering, weaving engineering.
Wow. Thank you.
I think your blurb mentioned something about where she has exhibits. Does she have her works are exhibited in Munich and elsewhere internationally, or no?
Oh, so there was a small exhibition of her work at San Bernardino. They did a show in 2017, and but there are other museum collections that have her textiles, like the Cooper Hewitt in New York. That's at the National Design Museum, and the Dallas Art Museum also has some of her textiles. I think Museum of Fine Arts Houston. So when her business closed in the 90s, a number of modern art dealers kind of cherry-picked those textiles and distributed them to museums, and in fact LACMA was a recipient of some of those early sales.
Yeah.
And that's how I got to know her work when I worked there first, so that when we got this call I already was familiar, but there hasn't been a big exhibition. That's something I'm working on, so I'll propose that next year and get that in the calendar for LACMA. So there's already a real enthusiasm for doing a Maria Kipp show at LACMA now that we have this archive. So that's something that I'll be working on and getting that scheduled. And my plan is to publish her autobiography so that can be sold in the shop when her exhibition is on view. So that's something that's in the works. But she hasn't had
No international. I mean, there's nothing as far as you know. Yeah.
There hasn't been a single exhibition just on her.
Yeah.
Her textiles have been included in a number of exhibitions. I was just talking to Denny Lynn last night. There's upcoming at LACMA, there is an exhibition called Home of the Future, and it's about the modern home in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And so there are going to be, I think, 2 Kipp textiles in that exhibition that's happening this coming year. And then there will be some of the newly acquired Kipp textiles in the exhibition on Paul Revere Williams, which we're doing along with the Getty and USC.
And where will that be? When you say you're doing all 3 of it?
They're going to be on all,
parts?
it's going to have 3 iterations at all of these institutions.
Okay.
So, but her textiles will be in the LACMA version of the Paul Williams show. And there were also some of the Kipp textiles in the California
At the
Modernism.
Autry.
Oh, at the
No, that was at LACMA.
No, but she had stuff at
the
the Autry Museum.
Oh, I'm not aware of that. Maybe they borrowed some from LACMA, because I don't think they have any in their collection.
Probably.
They could have borrowed some. Anyway, there's a number of shows in the works that will have a few key pieces, but I'll be working on the big showcase. That's something that's in the works.
Okay, so Denny Lynn, what marriage advice did your mother-in-law give you? I don't know if I'm fascinated or dumbfounded at this abstinent marriage there.
I told Nicole last night that when
You
we
had two
got
boys,
married,
I
Maria wanted to buy us mattress, you know, for the, and she wanted to get us twin beds.
Twin
and we
beds.
said, no, thank you.
Poor Papa George, I just can't imagine.
I mean, God love him. I
A
know.
lot of frustration.
But they were unified, I guess, in their spiritual
Yeah.
beliefs.
Okay, I see.
And Papa George, there was a 14-year disparity between their ages. George and I were only 12. And he had worked in the steamship company in Germany, and then he went to Shanghai, and and he ended up, he was an interesting guy. I didn't get to know him very well because he only lived like 3 or 4 years after we were married. But he came over to San Francisco and camped out on Stinson Beach in a tent. We're talking turn of the, the teens, in the teens.
Wow.
So when Maria retired, 1977, right, from the business, she was at a loss, and she had a beautiful home in the Hollywood Hills, and sold that and wanted to relocate closer to us, and asked us to find somewhere for her. So I found a triplex on the corner of Seaview and Dahlia Place, and she lived in that until she passed away. And she was, and because she was not a fan of traditional medical, anyway, what was I gonna say? Golly, about that place. It just left me.
What happens to us then?
Golly. Oh, so anyway, she lived there, and I know, she was at a loss of what she was gonna do with herself, because she was a businesswoman. And by the way, when she was in the shop, we had 2 gentlemen who ran the office, and she was not interested in meeting clients. She was in the back, weaving. When she dyed with these natural colors, I watched her. She used a little teaspoon and took the vegetable dry powder and stirred it in a little cup and cooked it on top of a Bunsen burner.
Wow.
And then threw it in the dye vat in proportions, and everything was checked. Every fabric was checked Every fabric was checked meticulously after it was woven.
Wow.
Everything was hand dyed. She would make a sample for a client, a la-di-da interior designer. She would make a sample and weave it, and then they would have to approve it before she would manufacture the whole 9 yards, right? And then once the fabrics were woven, there was a big table that was illuminated from underneath with lights. And I can't even tell you what the size would be. It was huge, because the fabrics were like 54 inches wide, right? That's traditional. And every inch of the fabric was checked over this table
Oh, wow.
to make sure it had no flaws in it, and it would be hand repaired.
Wow.
It was something to be around that.
And for her to have these celebrity clients and not really be interested in
didn't know.
schmoozing them.
No,
Yeah.
she
She
didn't
was
care.
all about the art.
She was, yes, she was all about the art, yeah. And so when she moved, I'm sorry, when she moved down here, she was at a loss, and I said, well, why didn't you write your story? So she wrote her autobiography.
That's how it came to be. Oh, okay.
That's
Yeah, and
great.
she, in the autobiography, credits Denny Lynn at the conclusion,
Oh, wow.
thanking her for buying you bought her the actual book that she wrote in. It was really poignant to read that after having gone on this journey of, going through the researching the acquisitions and then this, landline connection and then reading the book.
I don't have a landline anymore.
But yeah, Maria, in her autobiography, talked about the fact that because she only sold to the trade, she didn't sell directly to the public. So it was only interior designers and architects and that sort of thing that could come into her showroom. And so she lamented the fact that she really never could see where her works went, And so one of the things I would really love to do in an exhibition on her work is to find photographs of interiors where her textiles, had a life. Like, say in the home of the Palm Springs home of Frank Sinatra, or, any of these celebrity clientele that she had, to really bring them all together to see the end result of her work, because she missed having that personal connection with the consumer.
I have a question.
Jenny Lynn, did she ever train anybody else?
She tried to train me.
Okay.
Yeah, it didn't work.
Well, so
I
she's,
couldn't sit at that loom and
Yeah.
throw that thing.
She did, she trained her dye master.
Yes, she did. Who happened to be African American.
Yes, and there are photographs of him, and so she trained a dye master. She ended up handing off that part of the work to him, and
the actual weaving?
the dyeing.
Only the dyeing, yeah.
The dyeing, and then the weaving, she also had Emmy, who was Johnny Napolitano's wife. She actually, I found in the archives, it looks like she paid for or somehow supported Emmy's education in Europe. She worked with Maria in her workshop for a long time, and then she ended up going to Germany to study in the same school that Maria studied in, and they corresponded, and I have a sense that Maria may have funded that education, and then she comes back and continues working. But so she was equally trained, at almost the same level as Maria.
If I'm not mistaken, most of the weavers were German when she started her business.
Yes.
And then as that changed, then she recruited Hispanic, Mexican people because they knew how to weave.
Weaving traditions, yeah.
There were some other questions.
Yes,
Mine
you
was-
had asked a question.
After her father died, who took care of her? What happened in that span between
Yes.
when her father died and when she ended up meeting her first husband?
Yeah, she went to a sort of boarding school, and she also had relatives that guided her. But then pretty soon after that, she went to university in Munich. So she moved from the place where her family lived, and she was on her own. She really lived on her own. She did have a small inheritance. That was also held up legally for a while because there was some squabbling.
Of course.
Yeah,
Surprise.
yeah. But she ended up getting some inheritance that sustained her financially and that allowed her to pay for her education.
I was just wondering if there, other than when she was 12 and she had
This
What-
experience,
the
yeah.
experience, there was anything else between then and when she met her first husband that had an impact on, if she wrote about that in her autobiography, that had an impact on, her thoughts or development or?
No, the only thing that happens, she tells a really striking story about when she was in Munich as an art student living on her own in an apartment. There was a civil war there in Germany, and it was fought in Munich and on the tops of buildings because the city was so densely inhabited. They would fight on the rooftops of buildings,
gosh.
and she was in this apartment near the roof and would hear gunfire. I mean, and alone, totally alone, no family, in a city she didn't grow up in, and it sounds like she was really on the verge of a nervous breakdown. And she had a really compelling vision, one of those kind of 3D visions, that involved a flower that opened up with 3 petals, and there was a kind of, she was shown a path, like an actual path. And it was a very reassuring vision that assured her that she was on a path. She was on her correct life path. And it was, again, one of those messages she received in times of real distress. And that she said that really sustained her, because at the time her boyfriend was really her only strong relationship. And he had gotten mixed up in the Civil War and had gone into hiding in Switzerland. So she had no access even to him during this period of warfare. So this vision was really, these visions really sustained her, especially having no really strong human relationship that she could fall back on for assistance. So yeah, her autobiography goes into all kinds of stories about how she just kept moving forward even when it seemed like she was unable to.
When she was in school, did she have a chance to go to Bauhaus?
She doesn't talk about it. She was in the same place, same time. Right.
Perfect alignment.
Right, same place, same time, but different school. And but her cohort was definitely involved in the German expressionist movement. So I can assume that she knew people at the Bauhaus because of that, and particularly because of her involvement in Mazdaznan, because that was such a strong part of the curriculum there. Of course, she would have met art students and art teachers from the Bauhaus through Mazdaznan. And she and her first husband were kind of leaders in the youth category in Munich for the Mazdaznan movement. So they ended up, they hosted like a kind of headquarters for discussion groups, and she created, because Mazdaznan had this whole kind of lifestyle associated, really it was just a lifestyle, she and her husband created products to support that. So they would create like food packages, and she wove clothing, she made clothing for this kind of really progressive lifestyle. So they were not just leading discussions, but also kind of materially supporting the lifestyle that came along with that. So they were very, very heavily involved.
By the way, when they immigrated to the United States, 24, the two of them started a business, a weaving business in LA. And I don't know, after how many years she divorced him.
So they founded their business in 26, and it was under his name.
Yes, Ernst Haeckel.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she divorced him, and I think it was 1931. Does that sound right?
That sounds right. She moved down the street and opened her own business.
I love that.
And then reverted back to her maiden name, Maria Kipp. So she then founded her own business under her name.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also think
This goes along yours. Did she do all of the weaving herself, or
Oh,
did she
no.
hire people that
Oh, no,
she had a
she had
designer, but
weavers.
then
And as I indicated earlier, they primarily were German, and initially Hedwig. and
that's who was German. Okay.
Yeah.
she had when she opened her building, the purpose-built kind of factory, she had 16 looms. So she had, and she had built all of them. So she had multiple looms in operation. And Denny Lynn shared this great story because you worked as a weaver sometimes.
No, I'd never worked as a weaver. I couldn't move that damn thing across. But I worked in the office.
Okay, so but you had a firsthand knowledge of the operation, and so everything was by commission. All of the weaving project was by commission. And when commissions dropped low, when there was a kind of lull in the commissions, Maria would have her weavers
Keep weaving.
keep weaving, and those would be the floor samples. So she continued to pay them when she had no jobs coming in. And she didn't want to, shed staff or have something like a gig economy. She really was, she felt like she was the mother of her workers, and she felt a real sense of duty to them and didn't want them to suffer financially. So it's really amazing that she was able to run her business the way she did, that she could provide a product that was affordable, given all of the labor that went into it. She was really, really remarkable.
She started that when? Her own?
Not
Well,
31.
she started this company, under her husband's name in 26, but really, it was her business. I mean, he was not trained as a weaver, he didn't have the expertise, and so that was founded in 1926 in Los Angeles.
This is spanning the Depression.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
yes.
In the World War.
Yeah.
Second World
And she
War.
kept paying her.
And,
Yeah,
yeah.
the economic downturns that she made her way through.
Yeah.
That's why she needed these spiritual messages that she was receiving, because she really was navigating a business through really treacherous waters, and a lot of other people fell by the wayside, and she maintained her business.
And honestly, it's an affirmation of our own spiritual journey, isn't it? That when things are difficult, as they can be, we have to tap into something bigger than ourselves. And we may call it God, we may call it something else, but it's divine.
Yeah.
And we have to take the time, right, to feel it. Laura?
Denny Lynn, what was the best piece of advice your mother-in-law gave you?
Oh, golly.
While you think about that, I want to also say that it's not lost upon me that women were not allowed to have a bank account in their own name
Yes.
until the 1970s.
Yes.
70s?
And so, yes, you could not have a credit card unless you had a husband or a father or someone to co-sign, a man to co-sign for you. So she was building this remarkable business as a woman during times where
Yeah.
women weren't thought of as business people and
So-
weren't given any respect in that world.
So ahead of her time in so many respects. I don't know that she ever gave me any advice. I really don't.
And
That's what's-
non-judgmental people rarely do, though.
What's that?
Non-judgmental people
That's
rarely
right.
offer unsolicited
Something I
advice.
need to work on. Yeah, as you know, Ray.
So Denny Lynn.
Yes,
At your house, what's the little loom?
George built that little loom.
Oh, he built
I would
it.
have
Oh.
brought it, but it's very, very
I
fragile.
got you.
When George was in junior high, he built a model of one of the wooden looms.
Wow.
And it sits on a counter in my dining room. And it's meticulous.
It is. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He was trained in engineering, certainly, but he wasn't your, as we stereotypical engineer. He was very pragmatic and hands-on. And so that distinguished him from the run-of-the-mill engineer.
Did he ever weave at the company?
Yes, he did weave. In fact, he designed some of the fabrics. He designed the draperies that went into the Capitol in Honolulu when it was made a state, when Hawaii became a state. And her draperies were characteristic in that there'd be very, they went into the GM headquarters and wherever that is, Detroit or whatever. And so you've got these big tall things, but the borders were significant. So George designed, we were married then, I think. No, we weren't married then, oh hell. Anyway, the border was ocean waves. And then he did another one for something in New York, I don't know what it was, but it was a cityscape of tall buildings on the border.
On the border of the
And one of the looms, can you talk about a jacquard loom? It's, okay.
So she had a jacquard loom, so this is like,
Complicated.
it's like, it's a kind of precursor to the development of computers, so it's like a pre-programmed design, and so you have these punch cards that you kind of attach to the loom, and so she did have one of those, and you said you
Oh
would
dear
do-
God, when we were married in 1970, right? and we were living on the Balboa Peninsula in an apartment down there, and we would be punching cards.
That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But is that jacquard as in the double, like the?
Yes, layered,
Okay, the layered versus, yeah, okay.
very intricate. And
Yeah,
that loom George donated to a museum in
Vista?
Vista,
oh,
and it's still in operation. They restored it.
Yeah, I need to look at that. I need to
yeah,
go see
put that
that.
in your notes, yeah. Very cool. Well, that's,
Whatever happened to all the other looms since we had?
I don't
You don't know
know.
who knows?
I know George, I think George donated a loom maybe
Yeah.
to Long Beach State.
I haven't found any record
I
of that.
don't know, and we had little mini looms where they would weave samples that Emmy worked on.
Right.
And I think somebody bought one of those, I don't know. When all of this happened, this was in the 90s, and I was busy raising a family and teaching, and he was doing his thing and teaching, and I don't know how he did it all. I was just, it was,
A blur, huh?
it was his thing.
yeah.
He was so meticulous, and because, we
He
received.
cataloged all of those samples.
Yeah, you saw all those boxes that Danny Lynn was standing in front of. Those were all cataloged to the item level.
Wow.
So when we brought those boxes in, Danny Lynn was able to find his inventory that he had typed up. And it was on a old floppy disk, which we had to kind of extract the data from. So he did an inventory for every box down to the item, typing out the design number for each textile, because each design had a specific design number, and that's all of those initial designs, those small samples that Denny Lynn had mentioned. We have an archive of those that came in from the San Bernardino acquisition. So we have all the little, designs that she hand wove herself, and they have the numbers written on the bottom of the card. So, so those numbers were attached to the floor samples that are in the boxes, and George typed up all of them. I mean, literally thousands. And I just could not believe that he did this in his spare time, But it really was a testament to the value that he held, for his mother's hand-woven textiles, that he was dedicated to that, to want to record all of that information and to make sure that it found a home.
You have a command of Maria Kipp beyond what I could imagine you to have as far as one artist. How many textile artists do you deal with?
Was it
And I
in
know
my head?
you've taken a particular interest in this one, but how many other, artists are you involved with?
I don't know, about maybe 10 that I'm really kind of actively working on at a very deep level. I really, I would say that I really gravitate to artists who are primarily women, and maybe we're not captured by the market or by history in the way that they should have been. So maybe artists who are doing really exceptional work, but their work didn't sell at the rate it should have. Yeah, not getting the acknowledgement. So those are the subjects that I really gravitate to.
And not to mention, she does costume too. She's a curator of costumes.
I'm sort of fascinated by the behind-the-scenes activity in a museum like LACMA. You've got all these boxes. What percentage of this will ever be on a permanent display in the museum? I mean, will we ever be able to go to LACMA and see it?
0.1%.
A Kipp textile?
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have these shows coming up that will have a few of those.
Right.
But permanent exhibit.
But really, it's really minuscule. I mean, the truth is, it's really minuscule.
And is that in general
Yes.
for all art? So what we see in the museum is
A fraction.
a minor percent.
A fraction.
of-
Yes, although it
What's
varies by medium. So for example, in the paintings department, we have a relatively small number of paintings, and a lot of those can be on view indefinitely. In costume and textiles are light sensitive, so we can only put them on view for a maximum time of 1 year. And so the kind of general formula for textiles is it can be on view for 1 year out of every 10, and then it has to rest.
Wow.
So, and those are the lucky textiles that
Yeah.
can go on view.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of textiles are never so lucky to get out there and have its time on view. And so we, in our department, we go for depth. You want depth of collection so that once you've reached that limit of 1 year, you have another one you can rotate.
Sure, that makes sense.
And so we always want to have multiples. I mean, these acquisitions kind of, having 10,000 textiles, that's really extreme. That is really extreme. But we felt like it was worth having like a complete archive of her work, given that we are a museum in Los Angeles. She worked in Los Angeles. And the textiles are so relevant to architectural history in the area, so it's an exceptional case, but we really had a lot of discussions about, whether we would devote our storage to all of these boxes. And it was decided that, it was important enough to LA, to regional history, to merit an
Well, this
exception.
is the Gold Star lobbyist.
Oh yeah, I went into all the meetings with the deputy director, and actually surprisingly people were really, I didn't have to do a lot of arguing, I was really gratified to see that it was our librarians and our archivists also had to get involved in this, because there's a lot of paper in the archive too, so that all went to their collection.
Do you allow scholars access to what's in the archive?
We do, yeah. I mean, we're still in the process of cataloging these. But once they're cataloged, then they go into the system and they're accessible. And so we have, in our offices on Wilshire, we have a really lovely library that is open to the public by appointment. And I'm happy to, give that email to whoever is interested. But you only have to email the library and you book an appointment and you can come in and see. And then they shuttle the archives, from wherever they're stored off-site. So yeah, it's accessible. Yes.
Yes. In your research, was there a repetition of a pattern? I look at the two pillows.
Yes.
All right, and because I think of other remarkable art such as what we see in Native American art and in Asian art, that there are repeats of a theme that very possibly is an expression of spiritualism.
Oh, interesting.
And so I'm wondering, looking at the two pillows with that particular.
Those happen to be the same pattern.
It's the same. And is there a spiritual connection in the work that you?
I don't know.
And how often does it repeat itself? Because I look at these other artworks, Asian and African or Native American, and there is a repeat.
Well, because of those designs are communally held, right? In Native American, they're communally held designs. Her designs were proprietary. They were her own. She invented them, and she was actually very secretive about her designs. I actually know, this is a kind of funny story, but so the former exhibition designer at LACMA, Bernard Kester, he's now passed away, but he worked there for decades. And before working at LACMA, he taught fiber art at UCLA, and he was also an interior designer in Los Angeles. And so as an interior designer, he would go to Maria Kipp's studio as a buyer for his work. But he was also an artist himself and a textile designer. And so whenever he would come to her workshop to look at things in the showroom, she would cover the looms. She did not want Bernard to steal any of her designs.
So I think as your reference to Native American, there are tribal.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, so Maria did not want to have a tribe.
She did not. She was very proprietary, and in fact, her weaving skill was in a way her copyright, because she would create such complex weaves, nobody else could mimic them. You know, and so she would actually intentionally overcomplicate things so that they couldn't be imitated through her weave structure.
Well, like you're saying, she was making it affordable, but someone could have knocked it off.
I didn't think they were affordable.
I know.
They
Not at all.
They
Well,
were
For the type of thing.
Well, I mean,
For Frank Sinatra.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but when I was
Did you say
typing
that?
up the catalogs,
Yeah.
I mean, think of it in the 70s, I think some of them were $100 a yard
that
to the trade,
They were, I mean, they were,
or even more.
they were definitely high end,
Yeah.
right? I mean, this was not.
High-end affordable.
It was not democratic. I mean, this is not some, you know, it's not JCPenney level.
No.
You think?
No, they were
serious.
high end, but they were still within the reach of
People that,
you know,
in
people
that
who were
higher
people who
echelon.
were
Right,
wealthy
they were-
but not princes, or you know, not
But
not
then she
royalty.
did princes.
Absolutely,
She did the
yes.
Shah of Iran when there was one.
Okay,
I mean, she did them, you know what I'm talking about. She did the fabrics. Oh my God.
When these are cataloged, do you take a photo of each one, because that's the way that makes it more accessible,
Yeah.
to be able to see what's in the box.
So here's what's happened. So all of these boxes come in from these two collections. We have thousands of textiles. What I then do is, I worked in storage for, I think it was 1 day a week for a few months. And I would open each box.
After I donated.
Yeah, when they were in
yeah,
storage, yeah. And I would open each box and I would review the contents and say, okay, this one's actually coming to the museum collection. And then the rest remain in the archives. And so I think I ended up pulling out for the museum about 200 textiles. And those will get the full treatment. They will get photographed and they'll be put online. The others that remain in the archives they'll be cataloged really to the box level, not to the item level. And so that's kind of the short answer.
And what determined what goes where?
She does.
I know, but how do you determine?
I'm looking at the condition, number one, like if there's any water stains or dust that can't be removed, then I don't acquire that for the permanent collection, it remains in the archive. The other thing I'm looking for is like a visual impact for display. So even if there's, and this happened a lot, like that most of the textiles were in really good condition, but if it's a white drapery, that's not something that is going to make a compelling visual display. It's not something that's going to be rich in narrative. So I'm looking for things that are going to be really interesting to museum visitors when they're on display, or that if there's like a really important story to tell.
So when you were saying you took pictures and, you know, those things were, did you say archived or not? I'm sorry. But those would be the things that would be in the library. You said like if you wanted to go to the library or what?
Yeah,
would
you know, you could really you could see anything, whether it's in the art collection or the archive. Those can be made available. What tends to happen, and this is how we do research visits. If it's in the archive, you view it in the library.
Okay.
If it's in the permanent collection, you view it in storage. Now those appointments were a little more selective about that because there's
other items.
well, it's just that it's a security issue. You know, going to where our art storage is a security issue. So so we tend to be a little selective. Not that we get a lot. We really don't get a lot of inquiries to view art in storage. But anyway, so they tend to be viewed in storage. If it's part of the art collection.
Nicole, am I correct? Did the collection have to go into the freezer?
Yes, we freeze
Would you
everything.
talk about that?
So it's just, you know, with textiles, they sometimes bring bugs with them. Moths, you know, we cannot have moths come into the permanent collection.
All my stuff got frozen.
Yeah, and so that's how we treat pests. When we don't bring anything into the permanent collection until it's treated.
Makes sense.
Because we don't want bugs to start spreading. That's happened, and so that's just our regular pest control. Everything gets frozen. That way all the pests and the eggs are dead.
Yes.
Wow.
How long is it frozen for?
I think it's about a week that they stay in. It has to be below a certain temperature for a certain amount of time. It's math, I don't know, and then it comes out and it's sterile.
Yeah.
And it's defrosted.
Is a spiritual seeker as defined by Maria?
I'm sorry, say that again?
What exactly is a spiritual seeker as defined by Maria?
That's not a term she uses. That's a term that I used, and it's really something that you often read around, like especially around like New Age religion. So it's a spiritual seeker is like a person who's not really religious, and they aren't adhered to organized religion, but they are a spiritual seeker. Does that answer your question? They're interested in spirituality and actively seeking it out, not just kind of a passive believer in the spirit, but actively seeking it out.
Okay, so that is a label that she did not put on herself, but
It's a contemporary term.
okay.
Yeah, it's a contemporary term.
I think we should call it.
Thank you.
And
This is wonderful.
before you leave, please eat. There's quiche, there's coffee cake, there's fruit, there's coffee. Thank you all for coming. I can't tell
Thank
you.
you.
how-